Hello, everyone. Welcome to Now Next Later, Monday, October 7th. I have a couple of invites out for uh, guests today and our co-host today. And so I'm trying to let everybody in from the waiting room. Hopefully, if you're hearing this, that means you stepped in from the waiting room. We may have our co-host and our guest join us. I'm going to keep an eye on that. And until then, we're going to find out what we want to talk about today. And I had the agenda, had the guest, had the co-host, and it's just me. So I'm gonna do my best for those sports fans out there, my best Colin Cowherd impression solo here. But one of the things I will make an offer for, since we are waiting for others to join, if you have a question, if you want to put it in the chat, I'm going to jump in with a couple themes that we were planning on talking about today. Sasha and I were actually together in person. Ooh, good, Alan. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see if we can adjust the volume here. Can't hear you very well. All right, let's see what we can do. Test. Is that any better? Hopefully. Still no. Okay. Well, so much for the new mic, right? Let's see. How about now? Did I get closer?
All right, we'll go back to the basics. So one of the things that Sasha and I were talking about this week, we were actually together in person in Dallas at an event, and we got a chance to talk about, what are some of the trends that are actionable, and what are some of the trends we're seeing and talking about. The first several episodes of Now Next Later, we were really trying to get our arms around adoption. What are we talking about when we say putting a new idea into particularly a lender, right? So we have a lot of service providers, tech companies, vendors, and one of the big questions was adoption. I think we get together a lot and we talk about a lot of the same things. We hear people show up where we just implemented this. A great example would be like a ChatGPT function for salespeople, a ChatGPT function for consumers to ask questions after hours, frequently asked questions or something like that. And then everyone rushed to do it. It was actionable. They understood it. They could do it. And so I think you've heard me on Now Next Later encourage that. I've encouraged, think about this, focus on this. Our sponsor, Prudent AI, is an example where you take all of the knowledge that would be put into a ChatGPT or some other sort of frequently asked questions, and then you create enterprise search. Off of enterprise search, meaning your customers, your business partners, brokers or realtors, state agents, and your operational teams can all search the same thing at the same time, whatever they need to get their answers. And then you start delegating that platform work, whether it's documents, often parsing documents is often the next thing. And so we have this ability. We have the ability to create these enterprise platforms that ask the questions, and then we start delegating work to it. And that's been the extent of what's in the business. So let me forward Sasha the link real quick. We're talking in real time. It's all good. And so one of the things we wanted to talk about today, when we think about Now Next Later, it's what else is going to happen, and not 10 years from now, although I really enjoy those discussions. And next week, we're planning to have one of those, like, where's the industry in 5 years discussions. For today, I was thinking more, what does the next quarter or two look like? What do the next 6 months look like? Because one of the things that we're struggling with is how to get those new, hey, there she is. I heard you in the background while I was forwarding you an email, but you got on, or maybe not. So I'll just finish up my thought while Sasha's joining us on audio, which is we see a spike in refi business. And last week, Ethan from TrueWork told us, don't hire back to your original headcount. So one of the questions that I keep asking is, which of the technology providers inside of a lender today are going to be the trusted ones, and which are going to be either tested or not trusted when it comes to scaling back up, particularly for the fourth quarter, but also budget season is right now for 2025. So if you're a vendor or a lender, and a vendor or a service provider to a lender, and you want to put something in one of your prospect businesses today, you almost have to have either gotten in September, October timeframe, or hope that they have maybe a later financial calendar and you can get in December, January. And so I think that's one of the biggest questions, that I have. How do you get into the roadmap? And then once you're in the roadmap, how do you prove success quickly? Because I think lenders are just going to do the same old thing, hire back up, fall back on the same plans that sort of they've always had, and hope that volume makes up for it. In this case, what we heard last week, and Sasha, welcome to the show. I wanted to make sure we had your audio right before I paused again. I had already kind of started and stopped a few times, and so welcome.
It's on Monday. It's a natural Monday, right?
It's all right. Listen, that's one of the things I like. That's one of the things I like about shows like this one is we're regular people talking to regular people.
Yeah. Wait, are you calling me regular?
Tech bugs and all on a Monday.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good. I said tech bugs and all on a Monday.
Oh, I know. And then
one of the things I was saying, Sasha,
a hard time for calling me a regular person because I pride myself on not being anything regular.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I meant it as a compliment, but I know what you mean, which is you're an extraordinary person and we should celebrate that.
No, I'm just weird and crazy.
Extraordinary people also have flights that get delayed and microphones that don't work and Wi-Fi that occasionally goes out. So in that sense, we're all in this together.
Yeah, 100%.
So what I was saying was when we were in person last week, one of the things I heard was a bunch of optimism and excitement about rates falling, refi business, and what we'll be able to do to capture as lenders, what we'll be able to do is capture. But where I was going was we have a bunch of people on the call that, want to sell to lenders. And I think in large part, what we're hearing is that the top digital lenders, especially the lenders that have a servicing portfolio, are deploying tools really rapidly. And the mid-size IMB actually is more threatened than ever before in a lower rate environment because the capture rate and the cost of capture for the big digital lenders and the servicers is so much more efficient that you end up seeing lower rates. Salespeople and customers have higher expectations of a lower rate. You got to cut your rate sheet to get that business, and you end up eating away the margin you thought you were going to have in this refi moment. And so you end up losing money as a smaller or mid-sized lender as rates drop in October, presumably into November, because you can't compete with the conversion capture of the big guys. And so all you can do is slash your rate sheet, but all you have left on the rate sheet is margin. And so I don't mean to be a downer on this version of Now Next Later, but I don't know how else to say it. That's what I heard last week. And that seems to be the now that I walked away with. What did you hear? And am I totally off base?
No, you're not off base. And I heard the same themes and the same message across multiple panels. And I think it's such a good reminder of why we have to focus on relationships, because if the originators and the LOs had been staying present and in front of, even with competitors, so to speak, in the servicing space, in this particular example, they are technically a competitor. They're managing that business for you. Even if they have better technology and ability to get to them faster, if you've maintained those relationships, the person will likely stick with you. But a lot of them haven't, and they're trying to play catch up really quick. so that they can fight against those various factors, technology and speed to being able to get to them being one of them. And also they've gotten comfortable and used to the servicer. So yeah, I do think that there is an imminent threat, and it was very supported. And like I said, those panels last week, and I appreciated that people were willing to lean into that, because if we don't face the problems that are at hand, we can't address them. And so, kudos to the IMB leaders that got up on stage and just went, oh crap, here we are, and here's what we're faced with, and now how do we step forward?
So one of the things, there's a couple things I want to dig into there, but one of them you mentioned was relationships. And I found myself increasingly over the last couple of months telling founders and startups that IMBs don't necessarily buy the best idea or the best product, that they tend to buy what either A, from someone they know and want to work with, so a friend, a relationship, like you said, or one that actually works better in the ecosystem they've already contracted with, whether that's the LOS typically or some other sort of larger tech ecosystem, and it has to work within the other key functions or key tech, I guess you would call it the tech stack, has to work in my tech stack. And so I'll take a lesser than solution. And I think a lot of founders and startups come into this industry and go, well, I have the best idea. I have the best mousetrap, so I can sell that. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with this question of, is it actually better to just sell relationships in this industry and deprioritize the solution per se?
No, I think it needs to be both. So, I mean, my personal opinion is people, like we've talked about time and time again, any sales program, conference, et cetera, you go to in any industry is always going to say people buy from people they like, they know, they trust. Like that is just a common nomenclature at this stage. But you have to have options to meet people where they're at. And some people are going to require you to lean heavily into the relationship, and they're not going to care about the technological experience. And others are going to want that more digital forward experience. So I don't think as an IMB, you can afford to just throw that aside. But I do think, especially right now, when we heard a lot of those smaller and mid-sized IMBs struggling to turn a profit, struggling to capture an opportunity with, I liked how KP called it a refi boomlet, because it's not going to be the refi boom we saw in 2021, but there's going to be some level of activity, of course, and we've already seen it happening. But they're struggling with not just turning a profit and capturing that opportunity, but figuring out, how do I invest in technology when I don't necessarily have the funds to do so? And so, a lot of what I heard on stage, I know one person really wanted to redo their panel just to talk about CRMs, but the ongoing joke is always what's the best CRM? The one you use, right? So I would encourage lenders to look at the technology stack you already have and find ways to spend time optimizing it. We talked about this on the first episode ever, right? Clean up your data, clean up your tech, put yourself in a better position, and then evaluate in that process where you have gaps and what's missing, and make a list, make a wish list. It's like Christmas is coming. Santa's going to deliver presents, right? So let's make a Christmas wish list, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate, make your wish list. And then think about when things start to pick up and you do have money to invest, where you're going to get the best bang for your buck, and where it makes sense to start filling in those gaps. And then you're going to have to play catch up. And I know you and I talk very dispassionately about how during down cycles is when you need to invest. And the reality is not everyone can do that. And that's okay. So if you can't, then prescribe what I just mentioned before, and at least do the evaluation and see where you're at, so you can make strategic decisions versus reactive decisions when you do have the money to invest.
I think that's a great point. One of the lessons I learned at Rocket Mortgage that I don't know, admittedly, I don't know how common this is around the industry, but one of the things I learned was, I'm going to pause just for a second. Give me a heads up if you still have okay, there we go. So one of the things I learned at Rocket was there's probably somebody in your organization who's really good at the task you just described and probably doesn't have the job you just described. And what I mean by that is when there was an underwriter, I'll use an example. When there was an underwriter who was taking a long time on files, right? So that you're doing their data analytics of the underwriting teams, and depending on how you address your underwriting team, some refi versus purchase, maybe some conventional versus govy, blah, blah, blah. So you got your teams and you're doing your analytics, who's doing the most files and why. And what we used to find was when there was an underwriter who took a lot of time, there was actually two reasons why. One, the classic one, maybe they need more training or assistance from a senior, et cetera, underwriter to learn and get faster, more efficient, maybe. But more often than not, it was actually that they were obsessed with the guidelines, that they liked the product, that they were thinking through income and thinking through assets differently. And so we would pull them out and put them on product, like in the financial, so either in capital markets, on the tech team, or on what Rocket calls Mousetrap, but it's basically process efficiency, process improvement team. Put them on that team and let them go to work on fixing the stuff that's confusing, fixing the stuff that causes delays, that actually let them get really wonky on it. And I think you probably we as an industry may overlook those people because they don't have a tech background or something like that. And I would say neither do IMB CEOs. So just pull those people out, put them in your process improvement team, and let them go to work on what you've already got. And it doesn't have to be somebody who has a software engineering background, who has an Encompass admin certification. They might, but I think a lot of times we're overlooking, especially in these moments, like take a look at your team and who would be a good fit for figuring that stuff out and then optimizing it without you having to spend more money.
And I love that concept just in and of itself. Like, forget technology and optimization. In general, you should be looking at your talent pool and finding ways to maximize and optimize right now. I noticed this with a few lenders recently that like they get to a point where their volume is low and they go, oh, I don't need that processor. I don't need that closer. I don't need that underwriter. And it's like, okay, maybe you don't have enough work. You're in a valley versus a peak. But what do you have issues with? Oh, I don't have a construction desk, and that would be really helpful right now. Maybe I have somebody that has the right skill set that I can move over and plug into that, right? Or to your point, tech stack optimization, process optimization. I mean, we know you cannot scale technology on bad process. So if you have an opportunity to go in and dig in and go, okay, when we take an application all the way through funding a loan, where do we still have gaps and issues? And is there someone that's just really brainiac, problem solver, curious, wants to lean in, wants to learn a new area, that might be willing to say, hey, I'll go take that on for a while as a special project. And then when business picks back up, I'll hop back into that other role. I always feel like it's an opportunity to just say, you've already got talent here. They've got institutional knowledge. They've been doing the jobs. It's good for their growth. It's good for morale, right? We don't want to lay off any more people if we can help it. Don't always have right butts and right seats, don't always have right talent, and that's okay. But encourage lenders to at least look before you just make a rash decision. And I think it applies to more than just, like you mentioned, technology.
So I think that's a great sort of capture of the last few weeks, even months of the now. I want to pivot to the next and ask you some questions about, this is my subjective experience being in the consulting advising world for the last year, 15 months or so. And so I want to see if this resonates with you, and I want to see if this was your experience over the last one. There was a couple of big splashes made with, LOS providers, brand new ones, after the Encompass Empower or the ICE, I don't even know what to call it, the ICE Black Knight acquisition. Like after that big splash, there was like, hey, there are some new LOSs out there. And so there was sort of a moment of Vesta, Wilco, others saying like, we're here too, and we're coming. And I think there was a moment similarly around that same time for tax, right? Halcyon, others, 4506. There was this, hey, there's a new way to do it. Be thinking about this. You mentioned CRMs. I think CRMs had their moment recently. From your experience, like if we trace to 2024 and we look ahead to the next 2 quarters, what would be the next areas you think are coming? And let's talk a little bit about those. I'll let you go first, and then I'll throw in some and we can chat about what's the next spotlight for the industry.
That's a great question. I mean, I know people are getting excited about and want to play with AI. I think they're struggling to see what kind of AI, aside from generative, they can, and even with generative, where to apply it. But I think that will be one of the areas that will be hot. And then I say that in both a loving and unfortunate way, in the sense that it's like, we seem to like to jump to the next sparkly object before fully
Yeah.
leveraging, optimizing, maximizing the use of what you already have, right? And so I'm saying that knowing it's probably going to come, and obviously cybersecurity and data protection are going to continue to be at the forefront as we explore any new technology. But I actually, and I'm selfishly going to bring this up because it was the panel that I moderated at Housing Wire around the alternative loan products, right? Whether, traditional non-QM, you can call non-QM traditional at this stage, but I'm just going to,
Yeah.
mortgage, right? The fix and flips, et cetera. But I think there are, I don't know that we've fully optimized LOS, POS to manage loan programs and loan product types. I think there's a lot more work to do there. We all know most people buy CRMs and leave it on the shelf. I'd love to see, shout out to my total expert friends. I'd love to see more people lean into systems that have more bells and whistles that you are easy to use, because I think when a system is easy to use, a user will naturally just say, okay, I can do this, right? It's intuitive, it picks up on you, it knows exactly how you think, feel, and that's where that AI piece starts to come into play. And then now it's making life easier for you to follow kind of the new path versus having to sit in an antiquated system and be like, oh, great, I've got to add a new template so that I can accept a new investor for gosh, we have to do those things. But I think you're going to see a balance of the two. I think you're going to see people going, do I bring servicing back in? Do I not? Do I add more loan program types in? Do I not? And how do I fix my current tech stack that is more antiquated with the combination of, I want to go after the new sparkly fun objects like generative AI.
Yeah, that I always liked. So when I always kind of reduce the new tech to something I know and something I know my customers or clients know. And so for me, what you just said is I always really it's a simple thing, but sometimes the littlest hinges swing the biggest doors. And for me, it was the Google search, did you mean? You type something in and it goes, did you mean this? And sometimes you did and sometimes you didn't, but it wasn't a big step to be like, oh yeah, actually I did mean that. Give me better results, give me sharper results. And I think we do a poor job in this industry giving our loan officers and servicers and their customers the did you mean button or the did you mean functionality. And everybody talks about what we should be doing. And like you said, AI looks pretty cool, does some cool stuff, but ultimately, don't we really want the did you mean? Is this what you meant to do? Because it doesn't fit our pattern. And you might be breaking the pattern on purpose, great, but we just want to double check. And stuff like that, I think would make that product and pricing match that you're talking about 24/7, all hours of the day. I can do a match, market best, product best for this goal that you've identified, whether that's refi, purchase, save money, spend money, etc. And so I really think that's a good one. I think the other thing I wanted to ask you was, the trigger lead conversation kind of came and went. The MBA did what the MBA does. And then all of a sudden we started talking about a more one-to-one lead gen environment. And I think one of the things that it taught me over the past probably 2 weeks, asking about it, trying to learn more about it, was big data providers and big lead gen providers are rethinking what they have to do. And I don't think we've appreciated it yet. We fought for the trigger lead bill in a way that we always do as an industry, but I don't know that we really have realized what it meant to the big credit bureaus, what it meant to some of the other online data providers, and how quickly that world is moving to address or identify attributes, propensity, and other things. And I'm curious if you see or if you heard, you have any thoughts on what the future of the sort of lead gen, lead propensity world looks like, even 4 months from now.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I have not thought about it. And so I probably will turn it back to you for thoughts. But before I do that, I worry about, regardless of what the potential could be, whether you are looking at doing things in-house to help accelerate that, bringing on a new tool to help you accelerate that, this whole concept, like you talked about, of trigger leads, coming and going, then there's going to be the next wave. And we heard it at the summit, right? Insurance costs, more natural disasters happening, credit costs continuing to go up, everything around closing costs continuing to go up. And can a lender truly thoughtfully think about what to do with lead generation to capture properly while balancing the weight of all these other things that are going to hit them at the same capital requirements, like all of it. I mean, it's just, it literally feels, you know, pun intended, like a hurricane is coming towards them and they're just like, I need shelter. Like, I don't even have time to think about this. Like, I got to find shelter and figure out a way to compartmentalize. So I know I answered your question with another question. So maybe
Those are the best.
if you have thoughts around lead gen, I'd love to hear, because I haven't really been thinking about that and probably should be. But secondarily, I just worry about, like, even if there is a, you know, some silver bullets out there, like how do they even really consider those given the weight of everything that's coming at them all at once?
Yeah, when I joined the product innovation world, one of the most famous urban legends, and honestly, I call it that because I've confirmed pieces of the story, but not the whole story. But one of the most famous product management, product development legends in the industry is Target. Target acquired early on so much consumer data that they were actually emailing people coupons, sending people messages, flyers, different things so quickly and so accurately that it was disturbing to some consumers. And the famous story among product people was the time they sent prenatal pregnancy information to a 16-year-old, and her parents freaked out and thought it was inappropriate and made a PR thing. But it turned out she was actually pregnant and hadn't told her parents. So like Target knew she was pregnant before her parents knew she was pregnant. And that story in the product data world, and like I said, I call it an urban legend because I've not actually confirmed the literal story, but parts of that story from different people. But it underscores what I'm about to say, which is that was probably 10 years ago, that story. And now we're at the point where if a consumer wanted to, and if a technology brand offered, you could opt in for a very customized experience based on all your attributes. You just have to share all the data. You have to share all the data so that those attributes can be measured. But if you wanted to, it is completely capable. Where you move, in what markets, how you shop, where your life events or life stage are. We're now at a point where somebody could make highly customized offers. And I just think consumers are ready. And what I heard last week and what I keep hearing from people is like, I don't want to scare them. They'll never consent. I don't think they'll go for it. And meanwhile, my personal experience is like, I'm consenting all the time. I'm consenting to whatever Apple wants. I'm consenting to whatever Google wants. They've earned my trust. And I basically go, yeah, take it. Google, Apple, those are the two brands I'm most associated with. Have at it. You can have anything you want. Essentially, it feels like, at least. They know what I'm watching on TV. They know my email. They know everything. So I don't see where that trend doesn't come quickly to financial services and particularly mortgage, because it's already hit credit cards. It's already hit digital wallets. So now it's going to come to us. And I think we've got our head in the sand a little bit on how quickly that could come to us. And we're still thinking it's too far away, and we're still thinking the house is too big of a purchase. And I just think trend-wise, consumers are beyond that, and we haven't realized it yet.
Yeah, no, it's a very salient point. And I do think that there's nothing wrong with reaching out to a borrower and letting them know they have options. And the thing that people, I think, often forget is that life keeps going on, right? Like, yes, home purchase is a significant decision, and it's not something that people do every day, but you don't always know, unless you're best friends with your borrower, what's going on in their life. If they are having a kid, if they need more space, if they're going through a divorce, if they're moving because of a new job, whatever it might be, if you're not staying in touch with, or you're not capturing that data and listening in, you know, you can't necessarily meet them where they're at. But if you are, you can provide that information, and you can do it in a way that's not so intrusive that it feels like, wow, are you like literally outside stalking me? Right? You can give them multiple options, and you can frame it more like, even if you know specifics about their journey, you can frame it more around how it fits in with market trends and what's available and what's out there, so that it doesn't feel, you know, sorry for the use of the term, but creepy, right?
Right. Yes.
And I think, I mean, I am so guilty, and maybe this is a female thing, but like, I'm so guilty of like shopping because of Instagram and Facebook, where I'm just like, oh, that product looks cool, I want to try it, and then I go buy it, and I'm like, now I have a bunch of crap I don't need. Like, why? And I know it's happening. Like, I know they're listening to what I say, they're picking up on it, they're giving me my custom ads. I'm not mad at them. They're smart. Good job. Well done. Well played. Right. But, you know, you still have to be smart enough to make those decisions. But it's nice to know that there's even options out there, because sometimes you do find something that you come across you would have never thought of. And you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard of. And I think just because a home is a large purchase doesn't mean we shouldn't be thinking about it in that same way.
That's right. Well, on that note, I could talk about that all day. And Sasha, I know we will next time and in future episodes keep talking about that. So thank you to Prudent AI. Thank you to Chrisman Commentary and Robert Chrisman III. Thank you, Sasha, for joining us. You are an extraordinary person. Everyone should go read Sasha. Her Monday Magic is up, so you can go read that. And thank you for the time today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Glad I made it.
Yeah, right on. Good to see you, Sasha. Have a great week.
You too, Jeremy.
Bye.